Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark McPherson, movie critic for Moviespoon.com, TwinCitiesGeek.com. I also wrote the books, The Best, Worst, Weird Movies of the 1990s.
They're not in frame.
No, okay. I'll bring it in later. We'll bring it later when we do some of the plugs. Later for that. Joining me here is my wife, who's on here every episode and does her own stream on Wednesday nights. And
only the Thursday night ones am I on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, we did that one video game together. We played Tex Murphy.
Yeah,
together.
we've done some other streams.
That. Just that one though.
Yeah, done a few. So we're going to talk about a few different films today. We're going to be talking about Peter Rabbit and the 1517 to Paris and a surprise film that just popped up just this week.
Surprise!
It's a surprise!
It's a film.
It surprised everyone on Super Bowl weekend. And then we'll talk about a few older films that we've been watching lately. And then possibly, maybe something for Valentine's Day, although I don't know how much
We're probably not going to watch anything on Valentine's Day.
Probably not.
We're very unromantic as a couple, so.
So, I'm trying to think what I should start with, like Peter Rabbit or the 1517 to Paris.
I read
guess,
the books, Peter Rabbit.
I guess,
as a child.
Peter Rabbit.
As an adult, I guess.
We'll
my child.
We'll start with that one because I think I have a little bit more to say about Peter Rabbit.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the other movie you watched.
Yeah.
I just know that the kid didn't seem that enthused about Peter Rabbit when she came back.
No,
So.
And that's the problem with it. It's like because a few weeks before Paddington 2 came out, which is still not just like the best film of like the month. It's probably one of my favorite films of the year so far. Mm-hmm. Like I really dig that film. And that's because it takes Paddington and just kind of takes like all the stuff that you love about Paddington and just amplifies it just to make him a genuinely lovable and likable character who's got great moral, great message, and it's well directed and it's pleasant. It's fun to watch. There's great actors in it. And Peter Rabbit is like the exact opposite of what you do with a classic character.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously from, the Beatrix Potter books, but it has little to do, like it starts off similar to the same premise, but then quickly destroys it. Like very much. Okay, so it starts off with the similar setting of, Peter Rabbit, is a rabbit who wears, a little coat, and he's got his sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. Only both their parents are dead.
What?
Yeah, both of them are dead.
The mom was in the book.
Yeah, the mom was in the book, but apparently mom's not there anymore.
The dad got eaten though.
Yeah, in its place is their fat cousin, who doesn't do much of anything.
The cousin had a book too, right?
I believe so. Yeah, there's a whole.
What was the cousin's name again?
Let's see. I got it up here for. Because I knew I'd get lost in all their names. Yeah, the cousin, who is kind of more like the voice of reason here, is, it is Benjamin Bunny.
Yeah, Benjamin.
Yep.
I thought he got into mischief too. I don't know.
Well, he did, but I think because
In the book.
they need to have someone here to be like the straight man.
Okay.
Because everyone else here is pretty cartoonish. Because
cartoons, so
a cartoon in a live action world, which
I guess, yeah.
I could accept, but you've really got to you got to identify with Peter because they set him up as just this mischievous rabbit who loves to get into trouble and loves to get in McGregor's garden and steal all his food, and of course McGregor tries to kill him because he doesn't want rabbits in his garden.
And you can eat rabbits.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's actually what happens to Dad. So.
Well, yeah, that's what happened to him in the book.
Yep.
Although, I recently found out that the rabbits in the United States are a different genus than the rabbits in the UK or in Europe or whatever. Is that why I think they still eat them over there and they don't eat them here? Because they're different kind of rabbits? I don't know.
Possibly.
Just a thought that just popped into my head. Anyway,
yeah.
Continue.
Well, he's a farmer. He's trying to maintain his place, and I at first was kind of looking up. Peter's mischievous, but the gardener is played by Sam Neill. I always like seeing Sam Neill.
What else has Sam Neill been in? I can't picture.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Oh. It's been a long time since I saw Jurassic Park, unless you meant one of the new ones that I didn't see.
No, the original. He played Grant. And like Sam Neill, like remember we saw him in Hunt for the Wilder People. He's been around.
Oh,
in a few different films. So yeah, he's kind of got that kind of like gruff, grumpy McGregor look going on. And at first, the story starts off very much like the book. You know, Peter's getting into the garden, he's stealing stuff with his, except he's convinced his sisters to get in on the act too now. So he's got like kind of a team effort going to pilfer from the garden. And McGregor, it seems like it's going down the same route. You know, Peter gets caught in, you know, one of the little nets, and his little coat gets stuck, and McGregor's about ready to kill him. And then comes in B, the next door neighbor, played by Rose Byrne, and she is so accepting of rabbits that she's like, "Oh, you can't kill Peter. Oh, they're just mischievous little rabbits." She's like, "Oh, no, don't do those rabbits.
Eat all your food."
It's like, yeah, oh.
In the book, he pigged out, and he lost his clothes, and then he got sick from like the cold or something, and then that was like the lesson he learned, because he missed out on the treat that they got at home, and it's kind of like the same moral as the pokey little puppy. It's like, behave or you're gonna miss out. And
that's actually kind of why I hate B in this film, because she like prevents a lot of this story from happening, because she prevents like the struggle with McGregor. She takes the bunnies into her house to feed them and like when it's cold out to like let them sleep there.
That's weird. Did you know that in our state, or at least in our county, I believe it's actually illegal to take in wild rabbits?
Oh, I believe it.
The cottontails.
Yeah.
It's illegal. Just putting that out there.
Well, yeah, it's illegal, but I mean, like for the countryside, it's like, okay, fine, she loves rabbits, she takes them in, you know, she's trying to be Snow White or whatever, but if she's taking them in and feeding them, why do they care about McGregor's garden?
Because they're nasty little rabbits who want to go cause trouble, apparently.
That's exactly right.
There was only Peter in the books, as far as I can remember. Not the girls were well behaved, you know, and
but since
Peter was naughty and lost his clothes or something.
But since mom and dad are dead, it's them in charge now. It's Peter in charge now, so he's like the great manipulator.
See, that's why they had to kill off the mom, apparently, because the mom was there for the moral story, and apparently they wanted to cut the moral story out of Peter Rabbit.
Oh, it gets worse here, because once again, like, goes McGregor's garden, they have another scuffle, only McGregor has a heart attack and dies.
What?
Yes. Within the first 10 minutes of the film, Mr. McGregor has a heart attack and dies.
So is this basically just another sort of Alvin and the Chipmunks type movie where it's going to be lots of slapstick and not staying anywhere near true to the original story or anything like that? Oh, yes. Like take it. Okay, so Peter's just witnessed McGregor die. Like, he dies in like his hands and McGregor's like about to strangle him or whatever. What do you think his reaction's going to be? Oh shit, somebody died. No, his reaction is, oh, he's dead. Let's break into his house and have a party. I'm not sure I retroactively feel comfortable with my child having seen this movie. I was just staring, like, dumbfounded. It's like, what did you say to her after this movie? What did you think of it? You didn't try to, like, explain anything? I did try to explain to her that I thought Peter was a jerk. Yeah? What did she think? And she thought, like, well, he was kind of a jerk. Okay. Because because she saw the trailer and she found like the trailer funny and she wanted to like this film. Yeah, she did. But then when she came home, she's like, it wasn't that good. They tried to give me a T-shirt, I didn't want it. Yeah, I don't blame her. That was even before she saw the film. It's like, I don't blame you there. And the thing is, like, he's a jerk at first because he's triumphant. He takes credit for McGregor dying, even though he had a heart attack. That's terrible. And invites. That's taking credit for murder, then, basically, if he's taking credit for it. So that's manslaughter or murder, then. Yeah, but oh no. Why do they have that in a kids' movie? Oh, don't worry. They tried to excuse it away by the fact that that McGregor made like terrible life choices. He's a flippin' farmer, just trying to save his farm from rodents.
No,
Because
but
bunnies are rodents.
yeah,
you
but
know?
but
Come on.
in order to make that point clear, they have this horrible montage of just him eating like butter and donuts and cakes
So
and
a lot of people do that.
and then cleaning with asbestos that's getting in his mouth.
How do you
And
clean with asbestos?
he's cleaning like the ceiling with it, and he's got like a bucket of asbestos. And
That's terrible though. That's unfortunate.
yeah, they try to excuse it away. Like it's like, oh, he had it coming. McGregor deserved to die. It's like,
Oh, I'm on this. Yeah, we got to be on the side of the vermin.
yeah, because
it's cute vermin, but it's still vermin.
yeah, but don't worry about the deaf kids. All the animals come into the house and they have a party and they get all.
That's really terrible though.
They destroy everything.
I really hope you explained, how poor that moral argument was.
It's a very poor argument.
Gosh.
And that's just within the first 15 minutes. Because then after that, okay, so apparently, like, the war never changes, though, because there's another McGregor. Yeah.
They're gonna murder him, too?
Kinda, yeah, because like, the other McGregor is played by, Domhnall Gleeson, who he originally, he's like kind of like the nephew, and he didn't know about this farmer, Mr. McGregor, because he's basically this kind of executive at this toy store in London, or kind of a department store, I guess, but he focuses a lot on the toys. Just
Who wrote this drivel?
I think it was Will Gluck. I think he just directed it, though. I think there was a bunch of different writers.
Potter is turning in her grave somewhere.
Oh, she's like a jet turbine right now after what's going on with this.
It's a sweet little young nursery children's type story, and they've turned it into, it sounds like, crude humor and
not even
just demoralized type stuff.
Yeah, because like crude humor I could deal with, but this is like mega cynicism.
Yeah.
Like mean spirited all the way. Because like Domhnall Gleeson's character, he inherits the farm. And he essentially just says, like, I don't really want the farm. I want to sell it because I'm trying to move up in the world. I want to start my own business. So I'm just going to come in. I'm going to fix up the house. I'm going to fix up the garden and just sell it and be done with it. But the rabbits, obviously, keep screwing it up, so keep getting in the garden. So he keeps on putting extra measures like electric fences. And at one point he starts using dynamite. And I kind of sympathize with using dynamite, because at one point they, and they've showed this scene in the trailer where they basically rewire the electric fence so that it's connected to his house. So anytime he touches like a doorknob or touches like the toaster or something, he gets electrocuted.
And they turn a sweet little preschool, moral story into this. It's a story that's supposed to teach kids a lesson about basically doing what your mother tells you to, heeding warnings, and I don't know, the same kind of all the Beatrix Potter stories have. Like this, is Tom Kitten one of hers, where
I think so, yeah.
Those kittens lose their clothes or something and get in trouble too.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all pretty much the same.
And I think they might address a few of them, because there's when they have like the big party, there's a whole bunch of other different animal characters. I think some of them are from the books, some of them are not. But it's weird because they exist in the same universe as the humans do, and they kind of sort of bring up like, doesn't make sense. Why are they wearing jackets? Why are they standing like this?
That's how it is in the book. But they're just these short, tiny little books for very young children that are just kind of like, you read it along with like Winnie the Pooh and stuff like that.
And that just, it reinforces
and
this.
It's, from another day.
Yeah, and it reinforces this point about how, these short books meant for kids,
they gotta stop.
They can't be blown up into bigger films, because the more they get blown up, especially because you can tell that they're written by adults and mostly for adults in this context, it just doesn't work, because it gets more convoluted the more you think about this story. And that's the major problem with Peter Rabbit, is that it keeps on focusing in on this bizarre story when it should just be a simple moral, and it's not. It just goes for the easy laughs, or just like the whatever's hip and trendy with the kids. And it's so tough to watch, like, especially because the rabbits especially hate this new McGregor, because he is now falling in love with Bee. and B kind of digs him, even though he's a little bit of a jerk. But when he's at peace, he can be charming.
Is Donald Gleason been like just coded for jackass these days? Like he's just a jerk in every movie he's in now.
I don't mind him as the jerk. He's kind of like the likable jerk. You want to see him conniving and stuff, and that's kind of what I was looking forward to in this film.
Yeah.
And he kind of is that jerk, but at the same time, he's focusing a lot on these rabbits. When it's like he's trying to sell this house, I would just destroy the garden if it's that much of a
They basically
problem.
just tried to go mouse house, right?
Well, if they were trying to go like mouse hunt, I would dig it.
Mouse hunt, sorry.
But the thing with it is that these rabbits, because he's fancying B, and so B isn't really paying as much attention to the rabbits, Peter's decision is to kill the other McGregor. And this is not like an embellishment saying like, oh, his traps are kind of violent, they might kill him. No, he's out to kill him, especially because he learns that this McGregor is allergic to blackberries. And
what about Mrs. McGregor? Is she just not in this?
She's not in this. She must have died too.
So here's what Wikipedia says about The Tale of Peter Rabbit. It's a British children's book written and illustrated by Beatrix Potter that follows mischievous and disobedient young Peter Rabbit as he is chased about the garden of Mr. McGregor. He escapes and returns home to his mother, who puts him to bed after dosing him with chamomile tea. The tale was written for 5-year-old Noel Moore, son of Potter's former governess, Annie Carter Moore, in 1893. It was revised and privately printed by Potter in 1901 after several publishers' rejections, but was printed in a trade edition by Frederick Warren and Company in 1902. The book's success and multiple reprints were issued in the years immediately following its debut. It has been translated into 36 languages, and with 45 million copies sold, it is one of the best-selling books of all time.
And they screwed it up.
And yeah, that's not good to screw up a book that is sold and it has been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
To turn that kind of property into that's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's like every
I mean, Alvin and the Chipmunks, that's like what, from the 50s or 60s, and that was kind of stupid to begin with.
Yeah,
then they did this with Peter Rabbit, though? Are you kidding me?
This is every fear nightmare that you have, what they would do with a Peter Rabbit movie. Yeah, it's here.
That's awful.
It's here.
I mean, Where the Wild Things were was kind of dull and confusing.
Because they were trying to blow up a story that shouldn't have been blown up.
I know.
That's the problem.
And this one just sounds... It kind of... What you've told me about it just kind of disgusts me.
Yeah.
As
it's
someone who read Peter Rabbit as a child and the mother of a small child.
Yeah.
That this kind of...
And
disrespectful message has been added to this... to this sweet little children's book.
And this isn't just like some, like old, like adult, like, oh, I don't understand these kids or the kids. No.
Even it didn't even really sound like our kid really liked it. So
no, I mean...
That's even worse, you know?
Well, you can do a comparison. Like, I went to one of the public screenings of Paddington 2 with her, and every kid in there, fairly young kids, it was a packed house. All the kids were engaged. I didn't see any of them whining or running off or... They love Paddington 2 because it's that good.
And that's important for a kids movie because, in plenty of other good kids movies, kids are chatting and trying to get away. And
that's exactly what happened to Peter Rabbit.
Yeah.
There's kids getting whiny and antsy and not digging on the story.
Yeah.
And because my daughter was trying to get into it. She liked the little slapstick bits, but it just kept pulling her out.
And she's been going to movies for several years. She's pretty good at movies and all that. I mean, the first movie she went to was the newer version of Annie, and she couldn't sit through that one.
We got to get kids used to it, yeah.
Yeah.
But she's used to it, so even she's trying to like this film, and it can't. Because like I was saying...
She later complains about the kids who talk during the movies.
Yeah, like, what's their deal? Because like I was saying, one of the worst parts in this film is that they bring up the fact that, like, Peter discovers that McGregor's allergic to blackberries. And
so we're gonna poison it with blackberries. Is
well,
that what
but
it
before
is?
that happens, though, he comments like, oh, like who's allergic to blackberries? It seems like everyone's just getting these conditions nowadays. It doesn't even seem right. And then Benjamin comments like, actually, a lot of people have allergies. And he said, like, right, yeah, there's a lot of people who have allergies, and I'm sure we have to be accepting of their medical conditions.
What?
Certainly wouldn't want to get any letters.
Oh.
And it's like, ooh, why do they do that? And then I realize that was a preemptive apology for what follows next.
Because they're going to try to kill someone with blackberries?
They pelt him with blackberries repeatedly until they eventually get one in his mouth so that he can fall on the ground choking and then stab himself with an EpiPen so that he doesn't die.
That's really kind of dark for this kind of kids movie,
And
isn't it?
before the EpiPen kicks in, like Peter walks up to him and kind of, I think this might have been a different scene or not, but he kind of like pokes him to make sure like oh, okay, he's dead. So then the nice man and the ambulance will come to take him away. It's like, Peter's a jerk. There's no reason to like Peter at this point. It's like, pathos because his mom died and he has to be, I don't give a crap.
And
I don't care about him.
In the book, he was just a glutton, so...
Yeah. Oh, and you've got to love how lazy the script is with pointing out its obvious stuff. Like, they literally say, you've got a character flaw. They break the fourth wall so many times, trying to pretend that they're like subversive and trying to go over convention, saying like, yeah, we kind of know, we're kind of winking. Like, yeah, we're doing the obvious, character flaws.
We're bad writers and we're aware, but we don't care because it's a kid's movie.
Oh, yeah. And they're pushing it hard here. They're so trying to be like the snarky, cynical, and not your daddy's storybook type of film. And it is hard to watch at times. There's so many baffling decisions throughout. There's one sequence where there's a lot of musical sequences, obviously. Mm-hmm. Like there's scenes that'll just stop
because it's a kids movie.
Yeah, you gotta have
be a musical.
You gotta have dancing, so they put like the modern pop songs in there and get all all the dancing numbers out of the way. They have a rap song here with lyrics made specifically for this film for Peter and his crew training to kill McGregor.
What company made this movie?
This is bizarre.
What company made this movie?
I think this is this Lionsgate, I think? Oh, no, wait. It's Sony. How?
Okay.
I should have known. It's Sony.
I'm never going to watch another Sony movie again.
No.
I don't care what they make. I'm not going to watch any more of their movies.
No doubt,
I'm going to tell you that now.
Considering, like, the last...
So, if I ever say, oh, that trailer looks nice, you'll say, it's a Sony movie, and I'll be like, oh, they're dead to me.
Yep. Well, considering their last big kids film was the Emoji Movie,
yeah, F them.
Yeah,
fuck them. I'm done with them. I'm done with them. They clearly don't give a shit.
They're a sinking ship right now. And it's like it's not like I wanted to hate this film. I tried so hard to find something to like in this film. I'm trying to think I'm trying to think of a moment that made me kind of laugh. Actually, there is one moment that kind of made me laugh for how it was written more than how it happened. There's a scene where Bea notices that Peter's come into her place and McGregor's there too, and they both hate each other. But Bea is like, oh, my two boys together, this is so nice. And so she's
anthropomorphized the bunny then.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
And
that lady's crazy. That guy should run.
She's totally crazy. But he's crazy too, so I guess they deserve each other.
They're all crazy.
But she's going in and out of the room because she's going to get like paints to paint them at some point.
Paint the room?
She's an artist.
She's gonna paint the people?
So
not on them. Okay. She's gonna paint a picture of them.
She's gonna paint a picture of them. So she keeps coming in and out of the room, and every time she leaves, they start fighting each other.
How do you fight with a rabbit?
Well, they punch each other. He throws the rabbit against stuff.
He's gonna punch a rabbit?
Yeah, he's punching a rabbit at that point. But like every time she comes back to him, just like they quickly stop and look like they're caring for each other. There was one moment where I liked where his pants fall down, and then he tries to cover it up with the canvas and tries to explain art to the bunny, only to realize that she didn't actually come into the room. That's would have seemed like an opportune time for that to happen. It's written well, but it's not. Because it's like
that scene is written well.
Yeah, that scene's written well. Where
the movie sounds like it's written like shit.
Yeah, because it's trying so hard to be subversive, and that point, I think it kind of works on paper, but a lot of this doesn't work, especially because they're trying to like be like a a subversion to the regular convention. But it's like, no, you don't get to do that when you put the typical tropes of like the singing and dancing CGI animals, and then the montages, and then the pop music, and then the references, and then the cynicism, and then the fourth wall breaking. No, you're not clever. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that and expect me to like it. And it's like, I can't even fathom how to explain the ending where they have to kind of accept the fact that like the rabbit is a jerk. And because
does he redeem himself at all in the end?
Kind of.
Or are you supposed to be liking this rabbit the whole way through?
He's kind of redeemable in the fact that he admits to, at one point, destroying a part of Bee's house. Which is technically...
Wait, can he talk to the humans?
Well, actually, here's the weird thing. I don't think they can, but then there's a scene where Peter is actually talking to him, and he's saying, like, wait, okay, so... can humans always understand him, or am I going crazy? And Peter's like, well, you might be going a little crazy, so they don't really address it that much. So they just kind of like, isn't it fun that they talk to animals?
So it's kind of like in Family Guy, where it's like, oh, dang it, Peggy, I woke up before I found out if they could hear the baby or understand the baby. There, you can do the impression better than I can.
I woke up before I could ask if they understood the baby.
There you go.
Well, it's like the Garfield thing. It's like, does John understand Garfield? It's like, maybe...
seems to.
Sometimes he does, but other people can't sometimes, so...
I don't like Garfield, so I don't know.
They never fully answer the question.
I saw both the movies, and I never found Garfield really to be funny.
But they bring it up so late in the movie, it's just like, I don't even care anymore at that point. Like, yeah, sure, song and dance number or whatever, like, yeah, the tale's just beginning, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, no. That means that there's going to be sequels.
Please, no.
There's more than one book by Beatrix Potter about these cute, fluffy little animals. So you can watch them kill people.
Mm-hmm. Who will they kill next?
Unredeemable.
Oh, those rascals.
Oh, next in the tale of Tom Kitten.
But it's, obviously this has barely any relation to Beatrix Potter. I think kids...
Oh, that's why they called her Bee, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. Well, actually, especially because she does really terrible abstract paintings, but for some reason she's able to perfectly paint the bunnies. Like exactly as they appear in the storybook.
I can do abstract and realism. It's not like
that
far-fetched, is it?
No, but I think it's like it's abstract but not intended to be abstract.
Oh.
Like she's great at painting bunnies, but she's terrible at painting everything else. For some reason.
How?
I don't know. Another thing they don't explain just because it's funny, I guess. So yeah, this is a chore to sit through. I mean, it's trying to adhere to like the same formula set up by like the Minions films, where just like you follow the formula, you put in the references for the adults, you put in the fourth wall breaking for the scrutinizing, and you put in the song and dance number for the young little tweens so that they'll really get in on it. And
the song and dance number predates Despicable Me and the Minions, though. Shrek had all that shit.
That's true.
Shrek had all those notes. So they're going after DreamWorks' model.
Yeah, it's essentially the same DreamWorks model, except
DreamWorks, Illumination, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing. Like, I almost want to be apologetic now of Illumination because I think like Illumination they've been going
hit lower.
They've been going down the tubes with the formula, but at least there's like a little spark of humor in there, just a little something to latch on to with the characters, even if they don't hit it. Here, Peter is an unredeemable jerk that you really don't like him.
At least in Despicable Me, grew with the kids is cute. It's sweet.
Yeah.
And the only part
it's sugary.
I liked was young Gru at the end. But
yeah, it's
sweet stuff.
It's sweet, it's sugary. I don't think it earns it most of the time, but in terms of being like more innocent, it mostly gets there. Peter never reaches this level of innocence where we identify with him or his pathos or want to see what he does next or enjoy his antics. It's just unlikable throughout, and it's pointed out several times by Benjamin. It's like, look, dude, you got a problem. It's not about the garden anymore. It's clearly just your problem with McGregor and him killing your parents that you're going on this murderous revenge spree. This is pointed out multiple times and never really addressed that well.
And I mean, and then there's in the book, it wasn't his parents. His mom was still alive.
Yeah.
And his dad got killed because he's a prey animal and a vermin and was in a garden and then got put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor, who I guess they just really don't like women because they took out the mom and the wife.
Yeah. I guess so.
Okay.
So
Seems like an odd thing to do in this day and age, you know. Kill all the women. Kill all the
a
women.
lot of stuff going against this film. And it's also it's kind of sad because it's another strikeout for like James Corden, because he voices Peter Rabbit here, and then the other Sony Pictures film he voiced the High Five in the Emoji film, which was the biggest jerk of the film.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I didn't see that one.
Is he just going to be playing unintentional animated jerks for the rest of his life?
Maybe he's
I hope
a
not.
jerk in real life. I don't know.
Maybe, but
He's the guy who does that taxi cab singing show, right?
yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've seen a picture of it on YouTube.
Well, he likes to sing, and it makes me wonder, like, there's a lot of music in here. Why didn't he get to show off some of the pipes, you know?
Oh, so it was a musical and they didn't have him sing?
Well, they use a lot of pop music in it.
Oh, I see.
And there's a lot of music montage numbers, and there is that rap written specifically for the film, saying like "Yo, Peter and his boys," something like that. It's really bad. It was very excruciating to get through this film. And you know what? I'm willing. Like, I'm not really rooting for was it 50 Shades Freed? I know it's going to take the weekend, but I'm like, have it. If it means that Peter Rabbit will go down and have it, I don't care.
I've been seeing so many ads for 50 Shades Free, and it just looks so stupid.
Yeah.
I didn't watch any of those movies either. I've heard segments of it. That's right, by Gilbert Gottfried. Oh my gosh, look that up on YouTube. You will be pleased.
I watched the first movie. Like, that's enough. I get it.
Why? It sounds stupid.
It's softcore porn. For the
it was a Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah. So
that they just changed the names on, and apparently not very well written either.
It's just
so that I don't even try.
Yeah.
Just what the hell for?
Uninspired
it's written from
softcore.
something. It's written based off of something else that I also think is stupid. So
yeah.
Twilight was a movie so stupid that the actors hated it. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it stinks though, because I think James Corden, he really needs a break, man. And Domhnall Gleeson, he's good in this film, but he's not given a whole lot to do. Most of the time, he's just supposed to stammer around and get involved with slapstick.
I like the actors.
He's a great actor,
but I don't think I'd ever see this movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's no reason if you can,
or anything by Sony ever again.
Find a way to skip it. Lie to your kids, say, oh, they're all sold out, and take them to Paddington 2, because
Paddington 2 sounds very sweet.
Paddington 2 is the sweetest movie out there.
I saw the first Paddington and it was a good movie.
Yeah.
The second one sounds better than the first one though. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I really love the first one, but the second one is much better because I think gives more for the characters to do.
Yeah.
And
they're not just running from Nicole Kidman.
Not as much. I mean, like, they give some stuff for all the family to do. Here they give everyone something interesting to do.
Nice.
So yeah, it's more well-rounded. Hugh Grant's great in it, and there's a far better message in that film than there ever will be in this Peter Rabbit. So hopefully we can just smooth it over. It's another one of Sony's mistakes, and just kind of move on from that. I was surprised they give us a screener for this, unlike the Emoji Movie, which they just kind of didn't give critic screening to. So
they were probably more hopeful for Peter Rabbit. I guess the higher ups didn't actually watch it.
Probably. They're probably banking, more off the Domhnall Gleeson and the relation to the Beatrix Potter books. So avoid it if you can. I mean, there's a lot of films, winter we get a lot of these bad films right now. This is so far the front runner. So yeah, I don't want to hate kids films. I want to like them if they have a great message, but this is not good. Don't take your kids to this, please.
I don't think movies being kids' movies are an excuse for being bad movies.
No,
especially since, if it's a movie our kid doesn't like, I'm like, then there's just no excuse, I think.
Yeah.
There's that other movie she didn't like. There's like every once in a while there's movies she was like, nah.
Yeah. And that's why I hope that like Paddington 2 kind of signals this new age of kids films that can be more sincere and sweet and not have to force on all these elements that studio executives think have to be there in order to entertain kids. And it's kind of hard because Paddington 2 isn't doing that well at the box office, but everyone really digs this film and really loves it. That I think it needs more credit to be out there as like an example of what a great kids film should be. Because I mean, it is, it's sweet and it's charming. It's got a good message, but it's not boring. It's well acted. It's beautifully shot. It's one of like the most immaculate films I've seen so far this year in terms of cinematography, and it doesn't treat the kids like dolts. It's a fairly intelligent film for existing in such a nice and sweet little whimsical world. So hopefully we can have more of that, not as much as Peter Rabbit. Peter Rabbit, I guess 1 out of 5. Why not? I was gonna go easy on it, but the more I talk about it, and the more I think about it, it's like, no, this is.
I don't like the message they tried to give to our kid, though. That's a terrible message. That's a counterintuitive message. I guess I like the original message of the book as a mother would, which is, do what you're told. Don't go stealing things, and stay away from people who are obviously dangerous.
Yeah, because in actuality,
or you'll miss out.
And this is probably like the worst thing is like the film ends with McGregor trying to sell the house. But then he realized like, oh, I want to stay here, but I already sold it to this couple, and they're not going to give up the deed. So what do? We let all the animals into the house, and they can cause a ruckus again.
No.
And it's like, oh, that Peter. Oh, he's causing trouble.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Very stupid. So let's move on to something a little bit more intelligent here. We have Clint Eastwood's new film, The 1517 to Paris.
I know absolutely nothing about this other than what you told me after you saw it last night.
Yeah, no, this is based on a very recent event. Like, it seems like a lot of these films about American heroes are coming closer and closer together. Like, they had Clint Eastwood did the other film called Sully, which is about the pilot who landed in the Hudson.
Oh, so he's trying to send a message about probably American heroism and maybe trying to give people hope or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're coming closer together because they did that other one.
I guess.
It's admirable in that respect. And then we had that other one, was it Patriots Day, I think, which is about the Boston bombing. And this one, the 1570 to Paris, is about 3 Americans who were on a train going to Paris, and a gunman came out and started shooting at people. And before he got too far, the 3 Americans disabled him, got him on the ground, and was able to save the person that he shot.
Oh, well, that's good.
It's very heroic.
It's very, anti-fear-mongering in a sense then too, because they saved the guy.
Yeah,
it's cool.
And like in that respect, in hearing the story like that, it's very interesting. But the thing is, like again, like we were talking with Peter Rabbit, if you're going with like a small source material and then blowing it up, it has issues with padding. And that's
because all that probably only took a few minutes, huh?
Indeed, and that's the actual thing. There's like the actual incident. It only took about like 15 to 20 minutes, and that's exactly how it happens in the film too.
That's why it says 1517 Paris, because it took 15 minutes.
About that time, yeah.
15 to 17 minutes in Paris.
And here's the thing: that part of the film is undoubtedly the best part. Because that focuses on, how they reacted. It's shot very well. The camera's right in close with them. It doesn't shy away from any of the violence that happened there. It's kept very, almost kind of like clinical, the situation. Because they show who is where, who did what. They don't put over music on it. They don't try to over dramatize it with extra dialogue. And then once they show everything that happens up to the point where the train stops and the first responders come on, they show like every little bit that happens there. If you just take that section out there, that's a really cool short film that displays that. Unfortunately, we have to blow this up to 90 minutes. So before we get to that point, Eastwood takes the route of saying like, oh, well, how did these heroes get here? Well, we got to start from the beginning. And from the beginning, I mean, we're going to start from back when they were in elementary school.
Why?
Well, here's the weird thing.
Why do they have an elementary school that could be interesting with these people?
Not much. Here's the weird thing. Like, Eastwood, I think, and I might be wrong, but I think he's trying to take this kind of like Richard Linklater route to it, to show that the lives of these three Americans who were on board the train were fairly average Americans. Like, nothing all that huge happened to them. Like some cool stuff happened. Like, they went to, they attended Catholic school, or they were troublemakers, but when they grew up, one of them went to the National Guard, one of them went to the Air Force.
Okay.
They did fairly well there. They failed a few things, but they triumphed over adversity. One of them lost some weight. And then they went to Europe and hung around there, and then they got on the train and then saved the day. But like the
real people's lives are pretty boring.
and they are, and I think that was kind of the point of Eastwood trying to do this. Like, I think he was trying to show off like the ennui of these characters, saying like, look, they're just average guys. And I think it was kind of an experiment with this, because the actors who are playing the three men on board are the actual people.
Interesting.
Who saved it. And this is kind of cool, because it's kind of like an ironclad defense. It's like, well, if they're terrible actors, you can't say that they were wrong for the role, because they're playing themselves. But that's the problem, though. It's like, you can't criticize them for being themselves, but you can kind of criticize the director
for making that choice.
Well, for where he places them, because there are scenes that do work with these guys. And I think those scenes are when they're not trying to make them kind of like charismatic and jokey. Because like the scenes when they're going through military training, when they're struggling with their classes, or when they're trying to maintain focus in Afghanistan, it's fairly straightforward. They don't go to over dramatize it, and they feel natural. They feel like they know what they're doing, that they're in the situation, that they have a drive. They feel at home there. But then there's the majority of the scenes there are just the characters relaxing and hanging out and joking with each other. And a lot of the jokes really don't come through. It's kind of like one of those things, like, when you're with your friends and you kind of have like an in-joke between yourselves, and you think you're like you love being around them, and you have so many great jokes and fun stuff, and you think, oh, we should record this because then it'd be just as funny. And then other people watching just kind of like, I don't get it. It's not that funny.
You mean like what's going on with us right now?
Yes, yeah. Exactly like this.
Well, that's what I said. Real people are boring. I mean, some people have very interesting things that happen to them, but those same people probably have long periods of completely dull, boring things happening to them too. And
yeah.
Movies are different,
Yeah.
Movie people are so much more interesting because they are going through an adventure. I'm sorry, I saw something moving outside and it scared me for a minute. I'm sure it's just someone going for a walk, or maybe one of the coyotes. I heard a dog. I heard a howling last night. I'm like, is that a coyote or a dog?
Yeah,
so, getting distracted. Sorry.
But I mean, that's kind of like the problem here is, I think, because it's a much different style for Eastwood. Like, Eastwood is mostly known for doing stories that don't try to go for as much as the extra fluff. Like, one of the things I liked about Sully was that we kind of understood more of the mindset of the pilot, about how he was so analytical and terrified of the situation. And that's the problem. Like, if you're going into the 1517 to Paris hoping you're going to learn more about the event, like the shooter or or the other passengers on the train, you won't. You won't even learn about that much about the fourth guy on there, a British businessman who is also recognized as a hero. We really don't get a story at all, because again, this is supposed to be an American story with Americans. So
well, that's not.
Yeah, so it doesn't really feel all encompassing in that regard. And I almost kind of want to be with him on this style, because it's a different take. Because I kind of dig like the Richard Linklater style of just like relaxing with characters.
It sounds really boring though.
It is. And the thing is, I was kind of digging it, but he needed to pick better scenes, and Eastwood really needed to edit it down. Like, when we get to, after they get through like the military training and stuff, all of them meet up for a backpacking vacation in Europe. And this is when the film stops, like pumps the brakes, because then it just becomes a sightseeing tour. Like they go to see the sights, they kind of make some jokes in between there. Then they go to their hotel. We watch them check into their hotel. Then they go buy gelato. Then they leave the gelato place. Then they go to a museum and they look at stuff.
Dull.
Then they go out to dinner. And then they go to a club, which is probably the most extended sequence of their vacation. They show this weird techno club they go to where they have the music pumping and everyone's pouring drinks and they're sliding down stripper poles. And it just keeps on going and going. It's like, do I really need to see the extended sequence of them hanging out around the stripper pole, or to see the extended sequence of the bartender flipping drinks and stuff like that? I don't know. Somehow I think this really isn't important to the story at all, especially when we try to reveal the characters. You okay?
I'm letting the dog out.
Oh, okay. And there's so many scenes like that where, because like there are scenes that work, like the scenes where they're doing military training, when you think that something dramatic is gonna happen in one of these scenes, or that there's gonna be some great moment of character revelation, and it just kind of like comes and kind of like subtly, passively goes to show like, look, there wasn't that much drama in their lives, which would be okay, except once we get to that vacation sequence, it just turns into like watching someone's vacation vlog. Which is not really that interesting, but they don't really have much to say. It's like, you know, they probably seem like they're fun to hang out with, to go through all these, you know, to go out and get drinks, and they meet people on like boats and stuff like that. They do all this stuff that looks more fun to be there than to actually watch. And it just keeps on going like that, where I think if they chopped out so much of this stuff, we would have gotten the point across. And that's the problem with this film, is it doesn't know how to use these actors. Because I think like the actors here, which are Spencer Stone, Anthony Sadler, and Alex Skarlatos, I think they do have some genuine charm. But when they're forced to be funny and jokey here, they kind of seem out of place. They kind of seem like ooh, it's like, you know, when like you give someone you know, like they put someone up on like a parade float to commemorate them as heroes, and they don't really feel comfortable being up there. It's just like,
do that anymore?
I don't. Not that I think they. Oh no, wait. Actually, I think they did it in the end credits.
Oh.
I think because they did that, because like after the incident, like they were awarded like medals in France for what they did.
So I heard that Trump was gonna have like a heroes parade, but I have never really actually seen one of those.
Yeah, me neither. So
didn't mean to distract.
I'm sure they
exist. I'm trying to
exist.
listen for the dog to see if she needs to come back in.
Yeah, she'll be back in soon. It's cold.
Well, I thought she'd be in by now, but she walked.
Well, she'll
around
be back in.
She walked around the side, so.
But
I'll check on her.
No, my biggest issue with like I could accept the I could accept, you know, like that they're easygoing guys, but they like the thing about like with Richard Linklater's style is like he would make that sort of natural flow of fairly average, you know, characters work, especially for characters who are supposed to be actors. He knew a way to make them feel like you were just hanging out with them, that you were just kind of in the room, and Eastwood he kind of doesn't do that. He kind of just like puts the camera up there and just lets the actors go, you know, just do it. And I get the feeling it's kind of like yeah, just go with it, or that he was just kind of doing one take for these characters. And it's like there's so many moments here you just kind of feel like they should have done another take. Like they should have tried just one more time. Just try to get a little bit more emotion into it. And because of that, there's this awkwardness that comes up with the scenes, and the sort of like boredom sets in that you really don't want to be there. And I think that the biggest problem though is that there's so much to compare to. Like, I mean, like when they're trying to be funny, it doesn't help the fact that you have supporting players played by Thomas Lennon and what's his name, Tony Hale from Arrested Development, and Jaleel White, all playing the teachers at the Catholic school here. And these are all like fairly funny guys, and they get some fairly funny material here. It's just kind of like, ooh, you don't really want to compare the professional to, because it kind of distracts from it a little bit. because they're trying to make the story, at least when they have like the elementary school, I mean the Catholic school part, they try to make it seem kind of like a funny, you know, coming of age kids film, which kind of really doesn't work because the kids are not really that great with the dialogue they're given, and they're kind of being stomped on by Thomas Lennon and all these other great talents.
Sounds like two different movies stuck together.
It's a bunch of different movies stuck together. It's a coming of age kids at Catholic school film. It's a, you know, going into the military type film. It's a, hey, we went on vacation, what a wild ride type film. And then finally the action drama of, you know, stopping the terrorist on the train. And it's like it's such a weird misfire, I think, for Eastwood, because I think he's on this kick where it's just like, you know, he wants to be, you know, congratulatory of these heroes because what they did was great, but I don't think just throwing them in a movie is at least this type of film is like the best way to take advantage to examine the situation, because honestly, the way that he portrays it, it looks like there's not much here to look at with their lives. They're just average lives. And while I appreciate the effort to, you know, focus on saying, like, look, these are just average Americans and they answered the call, you know, so like if you're an average American, you too could be a hero. But it comes across with so many scenes. It's like this could have been trimmed down. Like this couldn't even be, like I said, like that ending part where they're on the train is the best part, and that should have just been like a short film. I think that itself would have been a better tribute than having to go through their entire lives and try to make these 3 or 4 different films out of it over the course of 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's disappointing to say that, you know, it's just because I really like Eastwood's films. I think he does a great job at touching on these American stories and trying to find more to their perspective. Like, I mean, you can say what you will about, you know, about American Sniper and Sully, but he was able to find something inside the character to examine and put up like kind of more like a portrait of like what it is to be like an American in these situations. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with 1517 is like there's not a whole lot here. They just kind of blew up the material and padded it out. So unless you really like seeing footage of Europe, like they go around to Rome and Amsterdam and France, if you really like seeing that footage and don't mind just some average guys making jokes in between, I guess you might dig it.
I guess it's like one of my gripes with Murder on the Orient Express. Oh, sure, the scenery's really nice, but the story's really boring.
Yeah.
It's not even a boring story. It was just done in a boring way.
Yeah.
We should move on. You wanted to talk about the movies we were watching this week?
Yeah.
You want to talk about The Dark Crystal, which I didn't sit through. I've never liked that movie. I feel bad that I don't like it, I guess. But our daughter liked it.
Yeah, she's on a bit of a fantasy kick right now because after...
80s fantasy, basically.
Yeah,
she liked Labyrinth, and she liked, some other movie we watched with her, didn't... Or was it just based off of Labyrinth that she wanted to watch all these?
Well, she liked Labyrinth, and we were talking about what film she should watch next.
Oh, yeah.
And because she liked Labyrinth, it's like, well, we got to show Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
Because that's the natural progression.
I don't like it, but I know other people who like Labyrinth do. Because, I mean, they're Jim Henson films, and I think that's like the only Jim Henson film I don't like. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially because, you know, if kids dig on 80s fantasy, you got to take advantage of that. Because we watched like The Dark Crystal, and then tonight she watched The Princess Bride.
So. Oh, she was glued to that one. She really liked The Princess Bride. She was really into the story, too.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, who is that? When he's got the mask on and all that. And he's like, well, he's a bad guy. Like, oh, no, you've got to wait and see. Wait and see. And then there was, we were trying to find Willow, but we couldn't find it on any of our streaming services or rental services, which is really weird.
That is weird.
It's really weird. I could have sworn it used to be on Netflix too, and I always see it at Target for like $5, so I guess I'll have to pick it up.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's like the rights expired there, because usually you can, because like I checked Amazon and Vudu too, like unless I'm spelling it wrong, Willow's gone.
WILL.
Are they trying to? Yeah, it's WILLOW.
Let's It's the same way it's out. The word willow is always spelled.
Is it the way is Disney is it kind of like what Disney does, where they try to like cover up their films and go into digital and then make a big deal about it later?
Gosh, I don't know.
Possibly.
Well, let's see. Where to watch streaming online per Just Watch. It says it's on Amazon, but they're showing it in euros, so maybe not in America.
Yeah. That's probably in UK.
It's on Google Play.
Huh. Odd.
But it says it's on Netflix. Maybe you can't spell. Honey, it says it's on Netflix.
What the heck? It didn't show up in the...
WILOW, and it was made in 1988.
All right.
We'll have to look for it again.
All right, well, I'll load it up.
Or I'll just buy the damn thing.
More fantasy for her.
She'll love it. I love this one. I still want her to watch A League of Her Own, too. It's not fantasy per se, but she claims that girls can't play baseball, even though she likes to watch baseball. So I'm like, oh, I got to show you something.
I have worlds to show you. But isn't that cool, though?
She means that she thinks girls aren't allowed to play baseball.
Yeah.
Basically. Continue.
But isn't that cool, though, when kids are watching it for the first time and they start like wondering and getting into the story?
It's like you're reliving your childhood a little bit.
Yeah. And like
parts.
And like Princess Bride is kind of like perfect for that, just because of the format.
Yeah.
Of just
surprises and everything.
Well, the whole surprises, and then having like the story read to you, because like any kid can relate to that, like
it's a good framing device.
So you can picture it in your head,
And the boy from the Wonder Years, Savage, and Columbo with his hair spray painted gray. It looked like, or silver.
This is the Columbo and Wonder Years crossover here.
Well, and then he's the primary character, I guess, of the movie. He's kind of so sweet to the two fellows he has to fight at some point too, and I think that's a decent message too.
Well, it's because it's having so much fun, because every character in here is just oozing charisma at every point.
All the characters are really interesting,
Yeah.
A lot of times I find the villains to be the most interesting part of a movie, but in this, all the characters are pretty interesting. I mean, I guess the least interesting character is Princess Buttercup, but that's fine.
That's fine. I mean, Robin Wright turned out right in the end,
Well, and we had to show her the Princess Bride because I made the inconceivable joke in front of her, and she had to argue it with me, and I'm like, no, it's a reference.
So now she can pull a Captain America.
I get that.
I get that reference.
I get that reference.
Got the reference to that reference?
You got the reference to The Wizard of Oz. That's the reference you got, because that came out in the 30s, right? So.
Yeah. Like the good kids films like that, because I hate coming back to it again, but like Paddington Dude did the same thing. You have all these like one-off roles, and everyone just tries to be charismatic and fun with them. Like, there's a scene where they have to talk to a security guard about what happened last night. Why does he just have to be a security guard? Can't we make him have some sort of like odd fascination with the cross-dressing nun that stole it? Like he's attracted to it, thinking it's like the most wonderful person ever, and that he was on the job but he was drinking too much coffee or something like that.
It's like when we were watching Home Alone, and you said that you could take pretty much any of these characters and make a really interesting story out of it.
Yes.
So,
like
Frank being a cheapskate and what misadventures that would lead him into, or
Frank's fickle follies that should have been
or the neighbor that Kevin's afraid of, more into what happened between him and his son and his grandchild.
There's so many of these Home Alone films. They should be doing these spin-offs with them, because
instead of all those sequels.
I want to hear more about John Candy's failed polka band.
It's too late. It's too late.
I want to see the prequel. The prequel to that, where John Candy. No, too late for that.
It's too late. It's too late.
Oh boy, that should have happened.
It would have been better than Home Alone 3, 4, and apparently there's a 5th one that I haven't seen, but I assume it's shit.
Yeah.
by virtue of being Home Alone 5.
How could it be crap? It's got Malcolm McDowell in it.
Home Alone 5 does?
Yeah. And he's the mark of quality, Malcolm McDowell.
Now I have to look this up.
What, that Malcolm McDowell is in Home Alone 5?
No, I have to look up what Home Alone 5... It got 2 out of 5 stars, and the kid looks really weird on the cover. No offense, kid.
He's trying to do the face.
I know. He's
facing an uphill battle here, the Home Alone 5 kid.
It's just because there's no way it could be a good movie.
No.
Basically, it's a cheap direct-to-video cash grab.
But it's like, why even be surprised at that point? It's like you hear someone complaining, saying like, "Oh man, Home Alone 5 was junk." It's like, well, you know it's junk. It's the 5th film in a series, up to like a series that's gone long past its expiration date, and every single one of them since like the last 2 have been terrible. So why is it a surprise that the 5th film is garbage? It's like they're supposed to be garbage, you know? It's supposed to be quick entertainment. But get away from that, Princess Bride. So much better. And holds up mostly because the story itself, I still think like the story is fairly weak, but again, like it's propped up by the characters, just because the characters hold your attention so well on this that you love it so much. Because even like the whole framing device of like having the narration, of Columbo reading it to the Wonder Years, it works. Just because, like, it's like a framing device. It's kind of like an old framing device, but I think it works because you like the characters so much, and you kind of, for as dorky as he is, you kind of dig Fred Savage, and Columbo's sprayed on gray hair.
So you have your Twitter open. So I'm looking at
You're looking at my Twitter?
Not your Twitter, your Facebook. Sorry,
your
Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not actually on Facebook.
Okay.
I just liked how you made a post about our daughter being on a fantasy kick, and your mom asked if she was afraid of the creatures.
Oh yeah, the Dark Crystal. Yeah.
And I was too. I find them very creepy.
Yeah.
I find like the main characters to look like if you made puppets of anime characters and their mouths still moved the way they did in an anime, which is very poorly. She liked your response that she seems to like it because she likes the scarier kids movies.
Yeah.
So. And
I think that's because I saw it later because there's a lot of sometimes it's the stuff intended for kids that scares you more than the stuff that would be intended to be scary for kids. Because there were like a lot of horror films that were not that scary to me, but man, I was terrified of Worf on Star Trek.
I remember you saying that.
Wait, I was terrified of Worf and Data on Star Trek as a kid because it's like, Data's an unstable robot and Worf has like that blade. It's like, why are they on the bridge? I don't want to be around them. They could go off any minute with like Data malfunctioning, or Worf gets the bloodlust and wants to kill you.
The bloodlust.
It's like I don't want to be there. I remember being terrified of the Ewoks at one point.
I was afraid of Tales from the Crypt, but that's just common sense.
Well, you're supposed to be.
You're supposed to be afraid of the Crypt Keeper. He's a freaky skeleton dude.
And he was talking directly down. He's like, "Hello, kitties." Yeah, so he knew you were watching.
Yeah. So I think it's reasonable I was afraid of that. I think I had nightmares about something from a Nesquik ad.
A Nesquik ad?
Either that or I imagined it. Was there ever a running chocolate man? Because I used to have one where that one guy was chasing me with the Nesquik bunny.
There might have been. There was this...
So I might have just come up with that, though.
Well, there was a run of, like, 90s commercials where they wanted to have CGI characters, and one of the easy things to do is having, like, moving fluid characters for some reason.
So maybe that was from an ad. I can't remember. I know I was afraid of Jumanji.
Yeah.
And I was also afraid of the Beast in Beauty and the Beast when I first saw it in theaters, but I think I was probably like 4 or 5 when that movie came out.
Well, I've mentioned this before, like a lot of people were afraid of the Beast, and I think that mostly had to do with, I think you were more afraid of
Weren't you supposed to be, though?
I think you were more afraid of the Dolby sound system.
Maybe. It was very loud, and I don't like loud noises. So.
Well, because the Beast, when he first shows up, he's obscured, he's in shadows, and whenever he enters a room, there's very loud banging and you know the loud wind roar and everything and the big growl. When you heard that in the theater, you know, because you know as you're a kid, you know you hear stuff that sounds big. So when you hear that loud of stuff when the beast comes in, you are terrified of that thing.
I think you're meant to be afraid of him though if you're a kid, right? So
and that's what's so cool about the movie.
There's parts of Jumanji you're meant to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Our kid was afraid of parts of that movie, but I'm like, it's okay. I was scared too. You know?
Well, Jumanji's a straight up horror film at points.
That's true, yeah. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else, like anything weird that I was afraid of, but I can't think of anything. Other than I used to be afraid of mannequins. So that went into adulthood, but I saw a movie that had mannequins that came to life, I think.
Mannequin?
And clowns. I was afraid of clowns.
Well, most
when
people
I was a kid. Now they're just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I've fascination.
Yeah, I've never been that freaked out by clowns. And maybe that's just because I got like, you know, I became numb to all like the scariness of the clowns that were forced on it. Mostly because of stuff like the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode with Zebo, and then stuff like It on television.
Wait, you see, when Are You Afraid of the Dark came on, I said yes and turned the channel.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
I think I caught the end of a few of that or Goosebumps.
Yeah, Goosebumps was mild.
I've seen some Goosebumps. That Goosebumps wasn't as scary.
No.
And obviously I've seen some of Tales from the Crypt, and that gave me nightmares.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Goosebumps was kind of more like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Just
kind of like weird stuff that happens to kids, and like some of it's kind of scary, but most
it's basically,
it's not much.
that sounds about right. The kids' Twilight Zone.
Well, because I was thinking of like ones like the Curse of the Cuckoo Clock, where it keeps on skipping through time, stuff like that. That's total Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, I guess I kind of more remember movies that made me feel kind of weird, like I was doing something naughty as a kid, and I've already told you about those, you know, Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And I watched some of the Monty Python movies when I was probably too young to be watching them.
Yeah.
Because they blatantly, I think one of them blatantly has a sex scene in it, meaning life, so.
They're raunchy.
They're very sexy.
They're raunchy and sexy and very subversive. And
yeah, it's weird that I've seen those, considering my dad didn't usually allow me to watch anything, you know, PG-13 before I was 13, and even then he was like, I don't know. But, you know, my mom did let me watch pretty much anything, so. And there was a few times where I was pretending to be sleeping while they were watching, like, I think it was Village of the Damned or something like that, or like some horror movie my dad was watching. And then I think I walked through the room when my mom had Child's Play on. And that scared me too.
Dang.
But I was really young too.
Yeah.
I want to say when she had Child's Play on, I would have been maybe like 8 or 9 or younger. No, it would have been younger. It would have been 6 or 7.
Yeah.
6 or 7, yeah. I'm having to go based off of places my mom lived after she left my dad, so.
I think it wasn't as...
When was that? So.
I think I wasn't as scared of the horror films just because, like, I kind of used, like, the buddy system. There was always kind of like
You had a younger brother.
I had a brother.
You had a brother who's within a couple of years of you. My brother is like another decade younger than me.
Yeah.
And you know, he would have been way more afraid of any horror movie type thing we watched. It was funny, we watched The Nightmare Before Christmas. Me and my brother are pretty similar people in some respects. Like in the respect of things we enjoy watching.
Sure.
And we put that on when we had some cousins over, and they're like a little younger than him. And they start crying in the opening of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, it's Halloween. It's creepy.
I'm like, what's your problem? Because by then we had the songs like memorized because we watched it so many times.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not scary. What are you?
Well, maybe it's just because of like the era. Because like you and I, we kind of grew up like the 90s were kind of like the era of the gross.
I guess.
Because you know, you had like the Nickelodeon going with like the slime, and we had Ren and Stimpy and stuff like that.
Did watch plenty of Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, so something that has kind of like the grotesqueness of like Nightmare Before Christmas just didn't seem as scary with everything else in that era. So it felt just kind of fitting.
And our kid has no problem with that movie whatsoever, but you know, the kind of we watch a lot of children's horror. So Coraline and all that. She watched Coraline. Oh, she was too young to be watching Coraline when she first watched it. And it did give her a nightmare, especially since we moved around that time. That was bad timing.
and there was like the little door in the room. It's just like, oh no.
Oh yeah, because the door, it's to the bathtub. It's to the bathtub. We have a very small house.
Yeah, so, the little door in Coraline. It's like, it's gonna take me to the other place.
Smaller houses, of course. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if she really thought about it that way, but after, I think she had a night terror or something after we moved in, didn't she?
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm like, oh, it's probably because of this.
Yeah. But she's since gone back and watched the film. And
she was completely fine with it.
Yeah, and she digs it. So maybe I guess if she could get over Coraline, she could easily get over stuff like the Dark Crystal and stuff like that. So
Dark Crystal didn't scare her at all.
No. Well, especially, like, I think, like, maybe, like, Labyrinth is kind of, like, a great way to start. Because Labyrinth is fairly gentle with its kind of, like creatures and stuff like that.
She didn't find that scary at all.
No.
She just had questions about the baby or something. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fairly simple, relatable story, and then you can go to the Dark Crystal and then just wade through this heavy fantasy world.
Yeah. Labyrinth, your gateway drug for
Dark
fantasy.
Crystal. For all fantasy, yeah.
Because she just wants more fantasy movies now.
Yeah.
Though she did ask to see The Darkest Hour, and I'm like, I don't think that is what you think it is.
No,
it's like, what do you think that movie is?
I was surprised.
Like, do you want me to tell you what that movie's about?
I'm wondering
do you really want to watch a movie about World War II and the Blitzkrieg and?
I'm wondering if one of the kids at school might have said like, oh, I went to go see The Darkest Hour, and she's kind of like, oh, I gotta see that.
She does interact sometimes with the older kids, so maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe she overheard a teacher talking about it too. That could be possible.
Could be, yeah. Might have asked, like, what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I saw The Darkest Hour. Like, I want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's about, but I want to see it.
She might have overheard us talking too. We're not. It's not a big house. She can hear us. She's hopefully sleeping.
Yeah, because we have been talking about the Darkest Hour quite a bit, because it's definitely one of the must-see films from last year.
Real good.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie.
And Oldman alone, man.
Definitely.
He's going to win it. Oldman.
Oh, did they still not do that? I don't follow award shows.
Oh, the Oscars aren't yet, but it's pretty much in the bag for Oldman. He's won a whole bunch of other awards, so.
Well, good for him.
It's going to happen.
He deserves it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the other thing I forgot we were going to talk about. So the Super Bowl happened last Sunday, and no interest in the Super Bowl. You know, like, oh, you can watch for the commercials and the new trailers they have. I'll watch them. The next day. I can watch them virally. I don't have to sit through a game. Why do you care about
commercials? They're things that are trying to sell you things.
Because it's like the big theatrical productions of these stuff like that. It's like watching mini movies more than it is commercials. So
I think I briefly talked about the Super Bowl yesterday. I mean, you weren't here, but I'm basically just like, they came here. It was freezing that day.
Yeah,
the traffic was less than I expected. So
welcome to the cooler.
They had to go to the giant eyesore in the Minneapolis skyline. So.
Welcome to our Death Star. So bizarre driving by that thing. And our shitty team couldn't make it. They almost did, but it's still just, the brand new stadium and the Super Bowl being here was just not enough for them to get their shit together. So the ultimate insult.
Yeah, well, I don't follow sports really, but I know our team is shit.
Yeah. Well, there was one particular ad during the Super Bowl that caught everyone's attention immediately. And probably made a few people stop watching the game.
Oh, why?
Well, there was an ad on there for there's an ad for a Netflix film.
Okay.
It was.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. It
yeah,
was.
I remember. I saw a billboard for that today.
Yep. It was just like, and it was a new film. There was no press release, no big release for it or anything. Like they just put up the commercial saying, "Oh, it's a new Cloverfield film,
Ooh.
the Cloverfield Paradox," and like because. It's similar to how they did 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like, they released the trailer about, like, a month or so before it came out in theaters without anyone knowing about it. And so they just kind of snuck it in there. Nobody knew that much about the trailer, not that much about going into it, and they came into it. And
I think the second movie is probably the only one I'd ever watch of that
it's the best,
yeah.
by far.
It looks like an intense movie.
It's an amazing film.
Sorry to interrupt.
So I was kind of looking forward. It's like, oh, this new Cloverfield film. Well, when's it coming out? It's like, oh, Netflix has it, and it's completed. Oh, when's it air? Tonight.
Nice. We don't watch sports, so you probably could stop whatever you were doing.
So you can stop watching the Super Bowl and just go straight to Netflix right now and watch their latest film on there, because it's a new Cloverfield film, and it's sci-fi. It looks like, and it looks completely different from what the other Cloverfield films have been, and it's not that good, unfortunately.
That's why they had to get you to watch it during the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, maybe that's perfect in terms of like marketing.
Yeah.
Like that's if you want to get people watching your film immediately, that's the best way to do it, right then and there.
Like, oh, that looks good. But I've been waiting for the Super Bowl. Whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, it's not Netflix new film.
Well, I guess some people do just stop to watch. They just watch the Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
I remember one year we just watched the Puppy Bowl.
Yeah.
Because we were at somebody's house and they didn't really follow football either. So we just watched the Puppy Bowl. That was pretty funny, actually.
It was.
With the Kitty Purry halftime show.
The Kitty Purry halftime show. And, I was very disappointed they didn't talk about it on SportsCenter. So.
You can tell we're just really into sports.
Look,
I think our kid's more into sports than we are.
That golden retriever was clearly off sides, and the ref did nothing. Okay? That really peeved me. Damn it.
The kittens, they were trying to infiltrate too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there was a side plot going on about one of the puppies trying to steal something too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was essentially
just adorable.
It was and I hate it. It was a commercial for the next like Air Bud film or whatever. So,
oh.
Yeah. But
how many Air Buds are they up to? Like 50?
I think. Oh, JP once calculated this. I think it was.
There's more since JP calculated it.
Yeah, so now I got to update the formula. So we'll figure that out.
Should I text him or snap him or something? How many Air Buds movies
yes.
are there?
How many Air Bud movies were there?
I'll send him a snap.
And don't count the Snow Buddy films, because I know those cross over.
What's wrong with this thing?
So yeah, the Cloverfield Paradox, similar to 10 Cloverfield Lane, it exists in the same universe as the first film, which is about a giant monster that destroys New York, but it has essentially very little to do with the monster. Now this is if you want to kind of look at it in canon, I guess it's supposed to be kind of like a prequel to what happened before the monster came about. So what happens is it takes place in this setting where Earth is running out of resources. Everyone's freaking out. They're threatening each other with war. And the only hope for humanity is the space station that has this certain engine that's going to be able to generate enough energy to supply the whole world with energy. And so a whole bunch of crew members go up into space. They go on the space station. They fire this engine a few times, like it doesn't work. Well, we got to get it working, otherwise people are going to run out of resources and they're going to start killing each other. So it doesn't work. They keep doing it again and again and again and again. It just doesn't keep working, and they've been up here for like a year. Yes.
Those Air Bud movies where
Air Bud, yes. So they keep firing this engine, thinking that this will be the time. This will be the time we'll get the energy. And meanwhile, they look at one news report on Earth with someone saying, like, look, the type of material that they're using, it's experimental. We don't know what'll happen with it, but there's a theory that if you keep using it too much, it's going to tear a hole in dimensions. And it's going to cause all this crazy crap of monsters and demons to come about. So obviously we got that to look forward to. So they finally
It's asleep.
fire the engine, and it actually works this time. They actually get the energy coming through, and when that happens, it sends the station into another dimension. So the station leaves, and everyone's freaking out because now there's a portal open into this other dimension in their world. And meanwhile, the crew is stuck on a space station in another world with everything going wrong on the space station, and them trying to figure out how do we get back to our own dimension. So naturally, it turns into, if you've watched stuff like, Life or The Last Days on Mars, The Europa Report, it's essentially just a haunted space station film. Because, you got your crew, and then weird stuff starts happening on the ship, at one point, the wall starts eating them.
Are they also high?
They might be. There's some worms that get infested in someone, so they have a gory death where all the worms come out of their body. There's some. I'm trying to think. There's some other weirder deaths. There's other deaths that end by accident. Like one of them gets trapped in an airlock and flushed out into space when the pod was overflowing with water, so they essentially turned into a big icicle. So there's a lot of, in that respect, there's a lot of cool deaths, but the story that they go about here is kind of goes through the usual beats of, the main character here, she lost her kids in her dimension, and in this dimension, she finds out that on this Earth, her kids are there. So she's like, oh, I could go there and live with my kids, but the guy was like, well, yeah, but the version of you is down there too, so you can't be down there as well, because they're not your kids. And the more that they are stuck in this dimension, all this crazy crap starts happening on the space station, freaking out. They find out that one of the crew members who was on the other space station in that universe is now on board, but because they shifted through dimensions, she's trapped in the circuitry. She phases in inside their circuit boards and stuff, so it's fused into her skin, so they gotta cut it out of her. And so there's an expected betrayal. There's mostly just them going through the mechanics of how they're going to get back to Earth with all the sci-fi jargon. There is the actors here are not bad. There's some funny stuff here. Chris O'Dowd plays the comic relief character here.
Chris O'Dowd really gets around.
He is. It's him and Tom Lennon we've been talking a lot about lately. They just keep getting into these films. It's they're always there as secondary characters. He has some fun stuff to do here, especially because at one point, in the film's most surreal moment, the wall of the space station eats his arm, and then they find the arm in a different part of the ship, and apparently the arm has a mind of its own, because apparently it's kind of from another dimension, so it cut off.
So he just basically turned into Twin Peaks here, where the arm becomes a person.
It's not that clever. It's not that clever because, like I said, it's mostly just the haunted space station story of we got to get back to our own time because we don't belong on this Earth, and the more that we stay here, the more crazy stuff happens, and we'll die in a whole bunch of weird ways. And meanwhile, back on Earth, more crazy crap is happening, and they allude to the Cloverfield monster from the first film. Mm-hmm. That there's a giant monster stomping about, but obviously they don't show it because just like 10 Cloverfield Lane, you can't be surprised by this. They don't show the monster until the very last shot of the film, when they finally get back to Earth and they're like, "But wait, why'd they come back? Oh no, don't come back!" And then the giant monster pops out. So that's how they got it in there.
That sounds kind of stupid.
Well, they forced it in here because, from what I understand, this was based on another script called The God Particle, in which it's the same story, but there was no giant monster in it.
They just shoehorned it so that they could fit into the Cloverfield thing, didn't they?
Yeah, like I said, it's a gimmick to sort of get you in.
It's like with the Silent Hill games. Mm-hmm. Was it the second one or No, it's the fourth Silent Hill game. The Silent Hill, The Room. Mm-hmm. Wasn't originally a Silent Hill game, but then they changed a few things to fit it into the franchise so they could get that Silent Hill money.
Exactly. But that was kind of like the cool trick with 10 Cloverfield Lane is that you didn't see any of the giant monster until the very end of the film. And yeah, it feels tacked on, but it's tacked on because, before that happens, you get this really cool bottle story of these three characters trapped inside a bunker. And from what I understand, that used to be a script called, I think it was called the Cellar, something like that, where they were just trapped down there. Had nothing to do with monsters. But if you can relate it to Cloverfield, you get this franchise going where, you know, you can have all these kind of weird sci-fi stories going, and then just kind of like, we'll put a giant monster at the end. Then it relates to Cloverfield. It sounds weird, but if it means you can get all these sci-fi stories that wouldn't normally get off the ground, then I'm all for it. Because I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's like the problem with 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's like, yeah, it can exist on its own, but I mean, without the Cloverfield deal, it's just kind of like a typical haunted space station type film, or it goes through like the usual beats of betrayal. You know, you get a decent amount of character development, but not a whole lot. And like, it's not the actors are bad; the actors are great here, but they're working with very, very simple characters that are more focused on the plot of getting back to Earth, and then going through like the typical melodrama of, you know, saying that my kids are back on this Earth, I gotta get there, and then just the tearful realization that you can't go back. So they try to evoke as much as they can from this, but it's unfortunately not a whole lot.
So something that might have been better left as, like, I don't know, Twilight Zone, Black Mirror, that kind of shtick.
Well, no, I mean, like, because, yeah, the giant monster element didn't bother me as much. I actually kind of found it more compelling because, like, the main character's fiance is stuck on Earth trying to deal with it and trying to help people and basically trying to avoid the monster at all costs. And it's kind of like that Gareth Edward film, Monsters.
Didn't see it.
In which it was mostly just Gareth Edwards. He directed the new version of Godzilla as well, which is mostly just about people trying to, like in the film Monsters, it's mostly just about characters who avoid the monsters and the disasters. Like, they get out of harm's way. Like, they're just like a few miles away from where the really bad stuff goes down. And it's the same here. It's a character just trying to survive, and he ends up saving a kid. It's kind of a cool little harrowing story. It could almost be its own film of just him. But again, like, it's him in a bunker for most of the film too, so you don't want to duplicate it like 10 Cloverfield Lane. Bunker Life. So yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane is currently on Amazon Prime, and it's getting a lot more hits now just because people are rediscovering that film, which is great. It's probably my favorite John Goodman role ever, just because he plays this kind of like uneasy psychopath trying to maintain order, but also being kind of emotionally fragile. Because like, he'll try to like insult people, like saying like, I know what's going on here, there's mutiny, and he'll try to insult you and kill you with acid. But then the next scene, he'll try to make up for it by giving you ice cream. It's just like, I don't know how to diffuse a situation, so ice cream, I guess.
Ice cream.
He's such a weird character that
like, who doesn't love ice cream?
Who doesn't? And he comes in there like he's done something wrong. It's like, oh, I didn't know what to do. I kind of killed your friend, but here's ice cream.
I killed your friend. Here's ice cream. What the hell? I really gotta see that movie.
You gotta. I love that film so much.
I don't know. I just have not gotten around to it, I guess.
It is such a great film. So yeah, I hope that there are more Cloverfield films. I hope this doesn't put Netflix or Paramount off from doing more of these films, because I want to see them. I want to see more of this kind of like Twilight Zone era like franchise where anything can happen, where you could write any type of sci-fi story and just throw a giant monster in it, and it's almost fun to just see on that level, to just say like, oh man, how can we take this really weird sci-fi story that we couldn't really sell, but what if we tack a giant monster onto it? Okay, so we'll just put it off to the side here and we'll tell this really cool story in between it.
Giant monsters.
It's almost kind of like, how you add the ending of like Tales from the Crypt, where you have the Crypt Keepers. They have a little bit or a skit like that.
Kitties.
So I'm just imagining like the Cloverfield monster reading these stories. It's like, hello children. Did I ever tell you about the time when I first came to destroy New York? Well, these other folks around here. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It's not a good film. It's not a terrible film, but just like I said, another typical haunted space station film. If you really dig them, you might get a kick out of it, but just more of the same. So not that, just kind of middle of the road. Hopefully more. Hopefully there'll be another Cloverfield film which will recover with, more crazier Black Mirror style story. Hoping. I hope. Because Netflix has had they're actually doing pretty well right now. I mean, with because there was this post saying because like Cloverfield Paradox was getting like way low reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and somebody was saying like, oh, this is all the critics conspiring against Netflix and against Netflix because they released this film without critics knowing about it, so they're trying because they hate them. It's like, dude, Mudbound. Last year, everyone loved it, released on Netflix. It's up for Oscars. Everyone loved it. We're not against Netflix films. They also did the Meyerowitz Stories, which is the best film that Adam Sandler's ever been in. Netflix does do good films.
It's like how they think the critics got paid off for The Last Jedi or something. And it's like, no, he legitimately just gave it a pass, apparently.
Get a pass. I like the film.
He just didn't care about the plot whatsoever.
I like the film. What can I tell you? But it's the same deal with Black Panther too. People are saying like oh, it probably got these high reviews because they paid off the critics. It's like yeah, sure we got paid.
I think it's just that they see the audience score and they see the critics score and they see how different things are, and then they're like skeptical.
Some people.
But then also you've got to consider how much spin news media in general has now, and that's obviously, even if the critics aren't related to what's going on there, it's still going to start spilling over. The association will spill over just because where you usually find reviews, I think.
Yeah.
Are in those places that distrust now.
It depends. I mean, there's a weird there is certainly a weird spin with how people look at Rotten Tomatoes. Like the big thing was like the first few reviews started coming out for Black Panther, and they were all positive. It wound up being at 100%, even though all the reviews are not out yet. A lot of areas have not screened it for critics yet. Like I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to, but we haven't got the screeners yet. And so there's only just a limited amount of reviews from people who went to the world premiere. So, like, not all the reviews are in yet. So, obviously, if there's a small collective of people and they all liked it, it's going to be 100%. So, now everyone was saying, like, oh, it's going to be overrated. But then came the news, like, of the first person who had the first Rotten score on it. And they were just kind of like, oh, really? A Rotten score? Who didn't like this film? It's at 100%. It's like,
was it Armin White?
Not yet. Okay. Not yet. Armin, you gotta wait. Armin White's trollish review is gonna be coming. You know it's coming. And, you know what he's gonna say about it.
Something about black people. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll find.
I'm sure Black Panther is actually a good movie. The character sounds interesting. So
yeah.
I'm sure it'll be good. He was good in the Avengers.
I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be of the same quality as any of the other Marvel movies. So if you don't like Marvel movies, you won't like it. And if you like Marvel movies, you'll like it. I think that's basically what it comes down to. That's
the problem. I think it's going to have the same effect as Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, you either like it or you got.
Well,
the how bad DC the other DC movies is going to put people off of wanting to see Wonder Woman.
No.
Suspicious of the good reviews.
No, I mean with the appeal that the same thing that Wonder Woman had because like you had like these two extreme sides of it, which was the people who really wanted to champion Wonder Woman loved it. They loved it so much that they thought it was going to win Oscars, that it was that good of a film.
But they forgot it was a cape film.
But it's a cape film. It's not a bad cape film. It's a really fun cape film.
Superhero films are not general audiences.
Yeah, but it's like, because it was so inspiring for women to have like a women-led action blockbuster up there, they thought they held it up on this higher pedestal. And then on the other side, you have people who because it was that, they were starting, to have like a boycott of that. There was a small campaign where they're trying to do a boycott of the Wonder Woman film, and there's one currently going on for Black Panther right now as well.
I haven't heard of those. All I heard about was that for Wonder Woman, they were going to have women's only screenings.
There was a woman only screening.
Upset about that, so maybe it was more of a backlash related to that.
Yeah, it was that. So there was a backlash. There was a very small movement saying like let's boycott the film, and that didn't go anywhere. And they're kind of doing the same thing with Black Panther, because there's this.
Why were they gonna do a black only screening?
Nothing like that. It was one of those. Here's the weird thing. It was set up, and I hated they did this. It's set up by like DC fanboys. Because again, because Justice League didn't get a high score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like, oh, all the critics are bought off by Marvel. So once again, we go through this ridiculous boycott, saying like, boycott it for DC. And it's like, man, I'm a DC guy. Don't throw me into the bus with you. Good gravy.
I don't know.
It's a good film. It's a good film. I mean, I'm a huge Green Lantern film, and even I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, and even I can admit that the Green Lantern film was junk.
People like to be on teams. They like to have tribes.
Yeah.
And if you're associating yourself with a tribe just based off of comics, it seems really silly. But people do that. That's why people get so into sports.
Yeah.
You know?
Just use the Jeff Goldblum rule.
Yeah.
They're just comic books. Why do we gotta pick sides?
I think part of the problem with comic books in general is they used to be easy to get. They used to be easy for kids to get. They used to be reasonably priced.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, my dad could pick one up for like a dime at the drugstore. Now you go to a specialty store, slap down $5 for 10 pages with a bunch of ads. Like one fragment of a story.
Yeah.
And you paid $5 for it. And a lot of times the art looks fantastic on the cover and shit in the inside because they're done by different artists. And the writing, especially in the Cape comics now, is just trash.
Yeah.
So
It gets pretty low
out there.
I mean, I mean, it's weird what's going on with, like, especially because like these comic movies make so much money, and yet the comics industry is kind of struggling a little bit.
Well, see, the thing is, you know, people have talked about this too. When you have an Iron Man movie coming out, you should have an Iron Man comic run going.
Yeah.
When you have a Captain America movie coming out, you should have a Captain America comic run going, and not one where he turns out to be working for the Nazis, although that destroys his character of many years.
And they're notorious for this bad timing.
That's just ridiculous shit.
Because I think
that's garbage.
Because I think
you don't have your Thor movie come out, and then the only Thor is female. What is her name? Something Foster, Joan Foster. What is the female Thor is all.
Just remember Dr. Foster, yeah.
Yeah. You have female Thor instead of the Thor people are going to be looking for.
Yeah.
You don't pull people into your comics by not having comics of the characters they're seeing.
That's the problem. Like they've always been notorious for having
shit marketing,
for having the wrong storyline going at the time.
So stupid.
I think when The Dark Knight came out, the current Batman arc, I think it was like Batman. It was either like Batman R.I.P.
Time traveling bullshit.
I think it might have been right before that. I think it might have been between like Batman R.I.P. when they thought Batman was dead, and then the Bruce Wayne through time arc.
See, this is just stupid. You should have basically a tie-in edition, because that's what they're looking for.
Well, they do have tie-in trades.
They want a tie-in trade with more, but they want more detail than they get from the movie.
Right.
Because that's why you read a book, after you've seen the movie, because you want more.
Yeah, and they're
of any kind of book. I'm not just talking about comics.
Usually they're good with tie-in trades, like because when the Green Lantern movie came out, they did a republished version of Secret Origins, which is the film that the Green Lantern movie should have been. Yeah. So, kind of doesn't help that they put the poster on the cover saying like, "Hey, based on the film," and it could have been so much better. Because like the whole point of like Secret Origins is it's mostly just him teaming up with Sinestro playing buddy cop, trying to stop Parallax.
That would have been a better movie.
That's what the film should have been.
Kind of like Suicide Squad should have just been Escape on. Wait, no, is it Escape from Arkham or
Assault on Arkham?
Assault on Arkham.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep getting those mixed up. Assault on Arkham, which was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Cartoon movie.
Everyone agrees that should have been the template. Yeah.
It should have been that movie, basically. I don't know what the heck is wrong with these people.
Studio heads and orders and doesn't test well and all that, so.
I think they just keep hiring the worst writers they can find for stupid ass reasons or something.
I think
it's just like, why are you selling this crap?
Well, I think it's reworking.
Someone must like it. I hope
because that
they're, keep making it.
Because it's not that they don't go after decent people. Because like David Ayer is a great director, especially about directing ensemble pictures about a-hole jerks.
It's not good enough to have a good director. You need a good writer.
Well, I think he was working with the script people as well. So
yeah, script people. Get a script person so you can have a cohesive plot.
Yeah, but ultimately it's the director who decides what goes up on the screen from the pages. So
True.
That's his call. But I get the feeling
you need
that
something decent to work with, though.
Well, the thing is, I think he did have something decent to work with, but the problem is, I get the feeling
poorly implemented.
I get the feeling it's poorly implemented because he wanted to have the Suicide Squad kind of look like this kind of like gritty street gang version of them, and he wanted to have them running around the streets of a city, basically trying to kill people, which. Yeah. For Ayer's style, that works because that's kind of what he's used to. That would have worked. The problem is the story they have to concoct around it, and like the means they go about of putting it up on screen, it just doesn't work. It's just like because like there's a lot of points where you thought like, oh man, this could be cool, this scene could be neat, but then they always have to keep relating it back to like they even say it at one point. It's like it's all leading up to the giant swirling ball of trash in the sky that we got to go to.
Well, they kept telling us how they were the bad guys, which is not how the bad guys tend to think of themselves. People don't, they do this a lot in kids stuff too, where the bad guy is aware that they're the villain and does it on purpose. They do this in Serious Unfortunate Events, and they do it in like Lazy Town and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess the younger the audience, the more I'm a little more accepting of that.
Yeah, because they're trying to sell
pointing out to the kids.
Yeah.
But for an adult movie, we're the bad guys. It's like you would not. You should be able to write your characters complex enough where, in their minds, that makes sense to behave and that it's not bad, because you don't do things when you think you're doing bad.
Because they forgot. They forgot they were supposed to be villains.
They're the villains. Oh, we gotta remind them they're the villains. They're the villains.
Well, we do
remind
because they don't do much of anything all that villainous throughout.
They didn't build the characters up correctly. No. It didn't, and like Captain Boomerang's character was a mess in this too.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like it. I wanted to like it so bad.
Of course.
It was awful.
You're a big fan of Harley.
I saw it twice, and I still like, oh.
Because you're a big fan. You want it to work.
I was a fan of Harley.
Yeah.
Harley's not Harley anymore. So.
I bought the DVD of Green Lantern hoping that the director's cut would help smooth it out. It didn't. It didn't a bit.
We didn't bother buying Suicide Squad.
No, I think I'll live without whatever additional footage they took out of Suicide Squad.
Yeah. I think it was mostly just Joker smacking Harley around, because that's what his character, how their character interactions usually are.
Yeah.
She's in love with him, but he just, like, beats the shit out of her.
Yeah.
So.
Isn't it weird that the biggest laugh anyone got out of the film was when Batman punches Harley in the face? Isn't that
I don't
weird?
remember people laughing, but I remember happening.
I remember the audience erupted just because.
They were desperate. They were desperate for a laugh. They needed that.
Yeah. It's like I was kind of like, okay, that was funny for as slapsticky as that was. That worked. So yeah, I think that's all the things we got to talk about tonight. We'll be back next week to talk about the Black Panther, which is going to be the big film of that week.
Oh, you are seeing it next week?
Yeah, I'm seeing it next week.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about that. We didn't talk about 50 Shades Freed, even though I know that's going to take the weekend, but whatever.
You haven't seen that, have you?
No.
Are you going to see that?
No.
Okay, good.
Ooh, no.
Don't waste your time.
Oh, no, I'm not seeing that.
What a cute little face you've got on.
So this has been Mark McPherson. You can read my reviews at moviespoon.com and twincitiesgeek.com. Currently at twincitiesgeek.com, you can read my written review of Peter Rabbit. My review of 1517 to Paris should be on Moviespoon tomorrow, if not the weekend. We'll see when the editor gets it up. And if you want to read more of my stuff, I also have the books, The Best, Worst, Weird Movies of the 1990s, and Pixels to Premieres, The History of Video Game Movies. So, lots of stuff to read, always writing. There we go. So, well, this has been Martin McPherson. We talked about a bunch of films tonight. I wouldn't recommend seeing Peter Rabbit or the 1570 to Paris or the Cloverfield Paradox.
Aww.
So watch Paddington 2.
So sad.
Well, hopefully we can recommend the Black Panther next week. Hopefully we can have a fun recommendation because it's the only film we'll see next week. So hopefully it's a good one.
I guess we can also recommend some older films like The Dark Crystal. We talked about that too.
Yeah, if you're feeling down,
Bride.
If you want a film that won't let you down, watch The Princess Bride because it's such a cozy film to watch. So.
Oh yeah, nice one to watch curled up on the couch with the bowl of popcorn and your kid. I don't know.
It's the way to do it.
And you can check us out also on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on my channel, Vision Goo, on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I was all on my own though. I turned the camera off right as he walked in the door.
I just got out. It's so close.
Because he saw 1517. Yeah, to Paris last night.
Mm-hmm.
It's fresh in his brain. And
fresh.
It was, I think I basically said, well, I hadn't heard of it, so it was probably bad. And you're like, yeah.
Disappointing, I would say, more than bad. It wasn't as appalled as it was with Peter Rabbit. Like I would say, it's probably maybe a 2 out of 5. So, yeah.
But anyway, yesterday I painted this. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
You got the varnish on there. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, I need to put another layer of varnish on it. I'm gonna have to scan it at some point.
Okay.
But anyway, that's what I do on mine. I paint, and if Mark's here, we talk about movies. Although I did talk a little bit about The Dark Crystal last night. All right. So unless anybody has anything to say in the chat, we're out for the night. I'll give you a few minutes. 1, 2, 3. Wait.
Like
I don't know. You have notifications for Facebook or something, and it distracts me.
Oh, sorry.
So you will see that I was snooping through your Facebook notifications.
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing to hide.
I have nothing to hide.
From your wife, anyway.
No. So
Other people, maybe.
I do the stream. I don't hide the stream.
Huh? You don't hide the stream? What?
No, because we're doing the stream together. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Always do
we're
the
out
stream together. All right. Good night.